Hello everyone, and welcome to my first Wrath Classic farming video. Today I'm going to be showing you how to solo farm the Halls of Lightning on your Prot Paladin. This is a farm that's heavily reliant on Relic of Ulduar prices on your server. If you're looking to try this farm out, make sure that the prices for these relics are decent enough for this to be worthwhile for you to farm. The majority of the income from the farm will come from these relics, but I'm also placing almost everything else on the auction house as well, with the exception of the green and gray items which I sell to the vendor. The Frostweave Cloth, as well as the Eternal Fire and Eternal Water you get from this farm, will also be worthwhile to sell on the auction house. Next, I'll go over the gear and the spec that I recommend you use. Here's the spec that I ran when I was farming the Halls of Lightning. The only notable thing here is I do grab Stoicism because some of these mobs in here do have stuns, and then we're grabbing Divine Guardian for the extra duration on our Sacred Shield, as well as the increased absorption. Other than that, it's a pretty standard farm, and this is probably what I'll be running for the majority of my farm in Wrath. As for the gear, you'll probably just want to get as close to Prebis as you can before you come in here. I just used the Wowhead Prebis list, which I'll put a link to in the description. I picked up as much gear as I possibly could over the last few days, and I even spent quite a bit of money getting some of these items. Now, when I tried this farm in TBC gear, it didn't really go too well, so if you want to try this, just make sure you gear up in some heroics first and get as much as you possibly can. You'll also notice here that I'm using a Dark Moon card Greatness, and this is because this is just an absolutely amazing trinket for prod farming. It's got a huge boost to strength, and the proc just makes it even bigger. The only problem with it is that it's super expensive right now because it's best for a lot of classes, and I'll probably never financially recover from purchasing it. However, for me, it's going to be worthwhile because I'll be playing this character quite a lot and farming quite a lot. So if you have the money for it, I definitely think it's worth it. However, if you don't want to spend that much money, you can just probably run a stamina trinket or some other DPS trinket and it'll be just fine. Okay, so to start out, we're just going to pull the first two mobs into the first pack on the platform down the ramp. For the majority of the time during this farm, we're going to be using Seal of Command to maximize our AoE damage. You should also try and keep your Divine Plea and Sacred Shield up as much as you possibly can. I think it's a good idea to have a weak aura or an add-on to show you when these are not active, because a lot of the time when I'm mindlessly farming, I just simply forget to put Sacred Shield back up, so I recommend you get something like that, and I'm probably going to get one right after I make this video. Anyways, when you're farming these mobs, you're going to notice a few different abilities. There's two types of dwarves, and we're always going to be killing the dwarves first before we kill the larger mobs. The first type of dwarf is a Stormforge Mender, and he casts Renew Steel, which is a strong heal. The second type of dwarf is the Stormforge Tactician, and they cast Arc Weld and Welding Beam. Arc Weld is a debuff that does damage to you anytime you move, so make sure you stay still if you notice this debuff. And Welding Beam is just a channeled spell that deals nature damage over 5 seconds, and you can interrupt this with Hammer of Justice or Avenger's Shield, or even the Blood Elf Silence. The larger mobs are also super annoying. They have some abilities you should watch out for. The first one being the Hardened Steel Reaver, which is the mob that has the shield, and it'll reduce your melee damage as well as stun you periodically with Shield Slam. The Hardened Steel Skycaller is the ranged mob that constantly knocks you back and is really annoying to deal with, especially if you're trying to run directly at them. A lot of times they'll just continually knock you back over and over, and it's best if that happens to just run away from them and try to group them up around a corner or something. After the second group is dead, I like to gather the next group and go up the stairs because this is a safe place and you won't pull the boss from this location. So if you see him coming and you're in this area, then just know that you can stand at the top of these stairs kind of in the back and you won't grab him. Fortunately for us, the boss already is patrolling away, so we won't have to worry about him for a little bit. Our main goal for this farm is to clear the entire first ring of all the Iron Dwarves and the Steel Reichel, while at the same time avoiding the patrolling boss. You can actually solo the boss as well if you really wanted to, but in my opinion, it's not worth the time it takes, so it's best to just avoid him until later on in the phase when we can kill him a lot faster. Anytime you're about to do a pull, you should always check where the boss is and where he's walking to make sure that he's not going to walk into you as you're fighting those mobs. If you do a pull and you notice that he's coming towards you, you can always drag the mobs to the previous platform or far away around the corner somewhere to make sure that you don't grab them. This farm is actually pretty easy once you get the hang of it, as long as you have the gear requirement. If after a while you notice that you can't get your time down below 16 or 17 minutes and you run into a lot of troubles where you're seemingly going to die, then it's probably just a gearing issue. To group up the range mobs, you should run into their melee range so that they stop range attacking you, and then slowly back away so that they follow you. If you run too fast away from them, then they're probably just going to start range attacking you again, so just make sure that once you've got them in your melee range, you just kind of slowly move away so that they follow you in melee. This next pull I did pretty badly. What I was trying to do was pull all these mobs onto the ramp, but then I ran into an issue of the ranged mobs knocking me back over and over. So what I did instead was actually ran even farther down the ramp, and then I wasn't LOSing properly, and then yeah, it's just kind of a sloppy pull. However, I did need to pull these away from that area because otherwise I was going to become trapped between my last pull and the boss patrolling backwards. So what I did instead was pulled these mobs over to the first ramp, and then I was going to grab the last group on my way out of the dungeon. So you kind of just have to think ahead like that. If you know the boss is going to be coming backwards and you're trying to do a pack, then you may have to pull them to another place so that you can safely get out of his way. Otherwise, you might end up having to kill him or run out and reset him. And just know that you will have a little bit of time coming back from the elementals to be able to kill any remaining packs. So you can always skip one or two and leave them for the end. Once you're ready to move on to the elementals, put on fire resist aura and heal yourself to full. The slags that we are about to walk through have an explosion and an armor reduction that can be kind of ugly, so make sure you're up to full before you go into this area. The elementals in the next port here have a chance to drop crystallized fire and water as well as relics of Ulduar, so they're really nice to add on to our run. They do a lot of damage though. The steam ragers have a strong damage and knockback ability called Steam Blast, and the unbound firestorms have a crit increase and lava burst ability. I usually do kill the steam ragers first. When you're moving through this elemental area, it's a good rule of thumb to try and pull 2 groups at a time. More than that is a little bit too much damage for us right now, and less than that is just too slow. 2 groups seems to work perfectly fine, and I still managed to get out in a decent time. Remember, at any point if you get too low, you can always use Seal of Light or Lay on Hands, since we're using the Lay on Hands glyph, and we can use it once every 15 minutes. Just to mention the Kiwi farm numbers on the side of my screen there, it currently says I'm getting over 1,000 gold per hour, and this is because the relics on my server are currently worth more than 4 gold. If I'm looting 30 relics per run, then I'm getting about 120 gold just in relics, and that's not counting the gold that I get from looting other items, as well as just the raw gold that you pick up from the mobs. But really, without the relic prices added in, the farm would really decline, which is why I think in the future, when people don't really need the relics anymore, as the shoulder enchants are account bound rather than character bound, this farm most likely won't be as good. But by that time, we'll probably be able to do other things as well, so it's not really that important. Now that we've got an odd number of groups, I like to pull one group into the next one, and then when it's about half dead, I'll pull the next group, and then I'll do kind of like 2.5 at once. This seems to work pretty well. That way you're not spending time killing one group before you move on to the next one. It's just a lot more efficient this way. But if you're bold and you have even better gear than I do, then maybe you want to do 3 groups at once. I mean, it's up to you. You can limit test and see how far you can push it. You should also try and use your wings as much as you possibly can to get your runtime down. A lot of times I'm way too cautious with my wings because you can't use divine protection within 30 seconds of pressing wings, and that kind of scares me, so a lot of times I just don't press it. But that's a big mistake, and it probably costs me a few extra seconds, but you should try and have it on cooldown as much as you possibly can. After we get all the elementals dead, what we're going to do is use Nitro Boost to get a little bit of speed and run back through the slags, kill the slags, and then kill the remaining dwarves and steel guys and run out of the dungeon and reset. On a typical one of these runs, I'll get anywhere between 30 and 40 relics, as well as 1 eternal water, 1 eternal fire, and about 1 stack of frostweave cloth. So in total from this run, I got 30 gold from vendor trash, 21 gold that I just picked up off of the mobs, 132 gold from selling 33 relics of Ulduar for 4 gold each, 1 eternal water that I sold for 5 gold, 1 eternal fire for 25 gold, a stack of frostweave for 16 gold, and 4 greens that I sold to the vendor for 23 gold. This run took me 16.5 minutes almost exactly, which means that I farmed about 250 gold in only 16 minutes worth of time. Like I said before, this farm is highly reliant on the auction house prices on your server, especially for the relics. So all I can say is to get in here before these relic prices drop. Once they start going down, this farm is not going to be nearly as good, so do it while you still can. If you're a new viewer on my channel and you're interested in gold farms or wrath videos in particular, please consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on the next one. I also stream at twitch.tv/spacious94, and I do have a Discord where we talk about gold farms, and we're always looking for new things that we can do. So hop in there as well. All the links will be down in the description as well as in a comment. Thank you guys all so much for watching this video, and I hope you really enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.